We have another Trump retreat, and I mean a complete retreat by Donald Trump. Tonight, there is not a single member of the National Guard illegally deployed by Donald Trump on the streets of America. Not one. Under the headline, National Guard troops were quietly withdrawn from some U.S. cities, the Washington Post reports the Trump administration has withdrawn all federalized National Guard troops from U.S. cities after its repeated attempts to surge forces into Democratic-run states encountered judicial roadblocks. They're all gone. The Trump retreat of National Guard troops is complete. The Constitution won and Donald Trump lost. And now Donald Trump is losing to Joe Biden in 3 polls that say Joe Biden did a better job as president than Donald Trump. And one of those polls includes the Rasmussen poll, which is always considered to be tilted in favor of Republicans. Rasmussen is Donald Trump's favorite poll. And now the Rasmussen pollster says, quote, if an election were held today between Trump and Biden, Biden would win. The First Amendment of the Constitution won when the vice president of the United Auto Workers reported in a speech in Washington this week that the auto worker at the Ford plant who called Donald Trump a pedophile protector is happily back at his job and hasn't been disciplined in any way. TJ Sabula, the 40-year-old auto worker, says he has no regrets for calling Donald Trump a pedophile protector. The Detroit News reports, quote, Trump responded by flashing his middle finger and twice mouthing F you at Sabula. The president also mouthed the popular catchphrase from his days on reality television, you're fired. The United Auto Workers vice president, Laura Dickerson, said in her speech on Monday, quote, in that moment, we saw what the president really thinks about working people. As UAW members, we speak truth to power. We don't just protect rights, we exercise them. And the label pedophile protector took on new meaning yesterday for Donald Trump when someone he protected with a pardon was found guilty of multiple child sexual abuse charges. Andrew Paul Johnson is seen here on January 6th when he participated in the attack on the Capitol to try to overturn the presidential election for Donald Trump. He pleaded guilty to federal charges for his participation in the attack on the Capitol. And on his first day in office, Donald Trump pardoned Andrew Paul Johnson, who is now facing the possibility of life in prison in Florida for molesting an 11-year-old boy. Johnson used Donald Trump's pardon to try to keep the boy silent, saying that Donald Trump was going to give him $10 million. Donald Trump has publicly discussed compensating the people who committed crimes for him on January 6th, and Andrew Paul Johnson used that, saying that he would put the 11-year-old boy in his will after Donald Trump gave him $10 million. Though there's a pedophile who Donald Trump protected with a pardon, a pedophile who has proudly called himself an American terrorist. And he really is. And he is a proud recipient of a Donald Trump pardon. Today, it was Attorney General Pamela Bondi's turn to play her role in the pedophile protector scheme that Donald Trump's Justice Department has been running by violating the law that requires the release to Congress of all of the Epstein files with redactions only for any identifying information about the victims and survivors of Jeffrey Epstein's international sex trafficking and rape conspiracy. We've had exactly 2 attorneys general in the history of the United States convicted of crimes, both of them Republican attorneys general, both of them in service to the criminal Republican President Richard Nixon. Neither one of those attorneys general ever testified to Congress while blatantly and publicly violating the law, which is what Pamela Bondi did today. The law required the Attorney General to hand over all of the Epstein files 54 days ago, and she still has not done that. And so she is breaking the law every day and was breaking the law every minute in that hearing room today. We've never seen an Attorney General willing to do that publicly. And because her position is completely indefensible, she had her staff provide her with a 3-ring binder with idiotic attacks that she could try to launch on every Democratic member of the House Judiciary Committee today instead of answering any of their questions. We've never seen this before. The Trump cabinet began doing this just this year. This is not what Donald Trump's cabinet did in congressional testimony during the first Trump presidency. This is brand new. And this is the end of the congressional hearing as we knew it, involving cabinet members. What we saw today was not a hearing. It was not anything that the most honorable members of Congress in our history would recognize. It was Pamela Bondi, with the help of the worst writers in Washington, trying to turn a hearing into a roast. She did the lamest possible impression of Comedy Central roast master in chief Jeff Ross with the stupidest material ever provided to an attorney general of the United States to speak in public. And she was stupid enough to do it. She was literally laughed at when refusing to answer a question about the Epstein files. She tried to change the subject to the stock market, and she said the Dow is over $5,000. Those were her words. She apparently doesn't know what stock market numbers mean. And when people laughed at her for saying the Dow Jones Industrial Average is over $50,000, she double underlined her ignorance by saying, I don't know why you're laughing. Congressman Eric Swalwell presented clear and convincing proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Donald Trump's FBI director, Kashyap Patel, lied under oath and did it on video.
Madam Attorney General, you acknowledged earlier to Mr. Johnson that President Trump was mentioned and the release countless times, you said, in the Epstein files. I just want to play a video, though, for you that I think speaks to the frustration that many of these victims have. Of times Trump's name appears in the files, so it could at least be 1,000 times. Is that right?
The number is a total misleading factor. We have not released anyone's name in the Epstein files that has not been credible.
Director, could it at least be 1,000 times?
We have released every piece of legally permissible information.
Okay,
you can characterize the numbers however you want it.
Claiming my time, Director. It sounds like if you don't know the number, it could at least be 1,000 times. Which
it's not. It's not.
Is it at least 500 times?
No.
Is it at least 100 times?
No.
Then what's the number?
I don't know the number.
We now know that the number is over 1 million times. Yes, 1 million. Donald Trump's name is in the Epstein files over 1 million times, according to Congressman Jamie Raskin, who has seen the so-called unredacted version of the files. And Kashyap Patel is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of lying under oath about that. And during every presidency in the history of the FBI, except the Trump presidency, the FBI director would be forced to immediately resign once he was proved to have lied under oath, and he would be prosecuted. The Trump administration is now a governmental crime spree from top to bottom, with the masked agents Donald Trump has sent to Minneapolis literally murdering people, which we have all seen on video. And the Attorney General feigned outrage today when she was accused by Congressman Ted Lieu of lying under oath. Congressman Lieu said, I believe you just lied under oath. And Pamela Bondi said, don't you ever accuse me of a crime. Everyone in America has a First Amendment right to accuse Pamela Bondi of crimes. Everyone in America has a First Amendment right in their factories or anywhere else to call Pamela Bondi a pedophile protector. Everyone in America has every right to believe Pamela Bondi is doing everything she can to protect any and all possible pedophiles whose names appear in the Epstein files. Pamela Bondi refused to answer questions about why the names of men listed as co-conspirators of Jeffrey Epstein's in the Epstein files were redacted. Republican Thomas Massie asked her how that happened, and she simply refused to answer. She insulted the survivors of Jeffrey Epstein who were in the hearing room today by refusing to even look at them when repeatedly asked to do so by Democratic members of the committee. Congresswoman Pramila Jayapal asked Pamela Bondi, the human being, to apologize to the survivors for having failed to redact their personal information, including their names, while she made sure that the co-conspirators' names were redacted. And that is when we saw that a human being didn't show up to testify to that hearing today, just a Trumpian robot whose handling of the Epstein files has earned her the suspicion of being a pedophile protector, and her refusal to acknowledge the survivors in the room today in any way established her Trumpian level of heartless, soulless depravity.